The Ryan Stick Show.
Greetings, true believers. Welcome to the Ryan Stick Show. It is a beautiful Thursday night in Montreal. It is so cold, my fingers felt like they were going to fall off as I patiently waited for my dog to take a crap. But here we are for a special, for a very special day. I am joined today by a young lady that I met when I was 15 years old. Now, that was many moons ago. I'm not going to tell you how many moons, but it's been a few. And it's crazy. Like we were just talking before this starts up, and I haven't seen her in long form. Like ran into her once in a while. Knows so many people I know. Kevin Bacon game all the way. But it's crazy how relaxed it was, and it wasn't even like, "Hey, how's it going?" It's just like, "Hey, what's up?" Like as if I saw her yesterday. So it just goes to show that sometimes people can make an impression, and some people glow, you can say. And Tara is a very talented actress and a voice actor and a host of a show called Addicted to Recovery that I just went all into. And it's all about her recovery process. And I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, if you're into podcasts and you're into people bearing their souls, I have never seen anybody, well, never heard anybody bare their souls quite much like Tara Nicole Boyce. I'm going to bring her in right now. How are you doing, Tara?
Oh, well, now I'm blushing. That was sweet. Thank you.
There you go. But it's funny though. When we joined, it wasn't just like, "Oh my God, I haven't seen you in so long." It's just like, "Sup, bro?"
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I guess also I watched your podcast as well, so that kind of creates a little bit of familiarity. It's like, oh yeah,
Yeah. Tara, I heard from her yesterday. She was telling me how
yeah.
she passed out on a couch and stuff. But right before we begin, I mean, the subject of today's show, ladies and gentlemen, and by the way, Alan LeGros says, "Hey, what's up?" And he says that you had the same music teacher. So, Alan, specify what teacher that was, and let's go down memory lane. But until then, let's just begin. Let's just begin. The topic of today's show is nerdy stuff that made us cry, because your podcast is all heart, all emotion, putting it all on the table, but you don't really get to get your geek on. And as far as I remember, the 15-year-old girl that I met was heavily into Sailor Moon, Broadway, all that stuff that, one thing I can tell you, Tara, you're fucking consistent.
That is
You know,
true. That is
yeah.
true. Yeah.
20 something years later, you're still digging the same stuff. And it's funny, like when you're pretending to be, well, when I was like trying to pretend I'm just like a punk kid that listens to nothing but punk, and then later on would love Broadway and love musicals and all that. Like one of the highlights of my life is Melissa and I got to see Beetlejuice the musical, which has
I'm so jealous.
a very punk rock feel to it
Yeah.
sometimes. So it's kind of like everything I loved all in one. And, we're going to be talking about that stuff. But I guess before that, like just tell the world basically, your podcast, how you started, and, what made you finally say, "I want to take all this stuff I've been through and put it on the internet as a cautionary tale," you could say.
Yeah, cautionary tale is right. Well, a memoir just kind of as a memoir, I have a background in creative writing. I've been doing it pretty much my entire life. And at a certain point, I was kind of noticing that I myself didn't really read as much as I would like to unless I was on a bus. I listened to podcasts all the time. And I was also getting into voice acting, and I wasn't really booking as many gigs as I would have liked. I think maybe my strategy was off. So I'm like, and how can I sort of marry these things that I love, performance, writing, and now my obsession with podcasts? And I'm like, I'm just gonna take what I've written and read it out loud and put it into a podcast. And then I just did it. And I didn't really think through everything that would come with that, like the kind of emotional ramifications of bearing your soul on the internet in that way. I've always been very kind of, it's always been very easy for me to talk about kind of the hard things in my life. That's always kind of been almost like a shortcut to intimacy for me. But it's a different sort of thing when you're using it as a means of connecting to a person. It's another thing when you're putting it out into the ether and people are listening to it and you're not there to gauge their reactions. And But I really do love it. It's a way that I was able to take my recovery and personalize it
Yeah.
during COVID. I mean, especially considering a lot of what recovery was based on for me was connecting with other people, and then we had this lockdown. But it also let me connect with my creativity and link that with my own recovery, and that was super important to me because if I'm going to care about something, kind of has to be something that I'm creatively invested in.
Yeah.
Um, so
Absolutely.
that's kind of how that all came about, and I think it's really relevant in a lot of ways because even if you haven't struggled with alcoholism, drug addiction, sex addiction, gambling addiction, those are the kind of like the big ones that you hear about. I feel like everyone can relate to kind of feeling out of control of their emotions and of doing things that they don't want to do and not knowing why they're doing it. And like they're all connected. So I really try to tap into the ways in which, like, okay, there's the alcohol, but then there's all the stuff behind it, all the noise in the head that
Mm.
happens, whether or not you have a substance abuse disorder, and kind of try to normalize that so that people who might have mental health struggles or substance abuse problems or none of those might be like, "Oh, okay, well, maybe the voices I hear in my head aren't that nuts," you know?
That's how I feel. I actually even messaged you about it. Like, you have an episode, I believe it's your first episode of season 2, where you say, I am an abusive person. And I'm like, that's an interesting title. But what it really means in that episode is I'm an abusive person to myself. And I'm like, wow. And I'm like listening to you describe like how you'll do something, and then like, the voice in your head will just tear yourself down, and you're just like, I would never speak to another human being this
No.
way. Why am I speaking to myself that way? And I'm just like, oh my God, my brain is full of bullies. And
Mhm.
yeah, just like a chopping block of self, like, just insults and stuff. And I'm like, wow, that so it just goes to show everybody out there, even if you don't fancy yourself, like, like say, hey, I'm not an alcoholic, or I don't want to listen to this. Tara's stories are great. They're extremely well written, because I'm assuming you've written it down and then are reading out loud. And
Yeah.
your podcast isn't like mine, that is full of ums and buts and dead air and stuttering and other stuff. Like, it's extremely well produced, and you're doing it every 2 weeks now, correct?
Yeah, usually, yeah.
Mm.
And there are ums and buts and stuttering, but I usually edit them out afterwards because I'm a bit of a perfectionist.
Oh god, yeah, no, I did an interview last week with the cast of this beautiful game called Guardians of the Galaxy, which
Mm.
I'm going to be talking about, of one of the games that made me weep in a little bit when we get on that topic. But I've also interviewed, and you would find this fascinating, even if you've never played the game or you have never any care to play the game. I interviewed the animation and cinematic director, and it's incredible the amount of effort people go through to really build scenes and characters these days. And that part of the video game process is fascinating.
Awesome.
Because back in my day, Mario jumped on tortoises and fell off cliffs, and that was the end of it.
Yeah,
And
back in
Sonic
my day,
ran.
there was a sprite, and they went block by block into a city, and
Sonic just ran really fast until he fell off something or he ran out of time. But yeah, anyway, so really great stuff. And speaking of video games, Tara, you were also mentioning, you're like, yeah, I don't really talk about the geek stuff on my show. And I'm like, well, come on my show and let's talk about that geek stuff. And considering we're both very emotional people, Tara,
Mm.
Nicole Boyce, what are the video games that made you cry?
Oh, goodness gracious. Mm, I think the first video game that ever made me cry was Final Fantasy IV. Well, it was called Final Fantasy II at the time. And
Yeah, you mentioned it on your podcast, and I was just like, "Yeah," because
mm,
that's the only Final Fantasy game I've ever played, like
oh
fully. Yeah, that's the
no.
that's the only
Oh,
one.
oh, what a
I was
travesty. Well,
I was
actually, they kind of
obsessed with the story though. It's so cool.
yeah, and that was
Cecil
a
and yeah,
yeah, and that was such a like an early game in terms of story,
yeah.
but that's the oh, I mean, they kinda get crummy after 10 anyways. Well, I hope I didn't piss anyone off, but, um, and I had just never played a game where there was so much character development and you feel like you're going on a journey with these people. And then there's this moment at the end where all your characters they've been beaten by the final boss, the Romus. They're all on the ground and they're about to give up. And then all their friends kind of psychically send their energies to encourage them and give them a second win to go into that final battle and defeat the evil guy. And even the spirit of one of them that's dead still comes back and lends almost like his spiritual energy to our fallen heroes. And it's those power of friendship moments and that
Yeah.
they get me in the gut every time. And pretty much any video game, but there's almost every JRPG. I pretty much only play JRPG. There's this moment, usually towards the end of the game, or sometimes in the middle, where the heroes are down on their luck and they think they're going to be defeated, and then all of a sudden, like, no, if we do it together, we can do it. And there's this power of friendship moment, and they can do together what they can't do alone, and
Yeah.
it just chokes me up all the time because I think it really touches on my. I've always had this very deep-seated need for like belonging and to feel like part of something,
Oh yeah.
and seeing that sort of manifested in games and feeling like I'm participating in this camaraderie and this journey of people getting stronger by being together. Um, I think it was almost a bit of a wish fulfillment for me when I was younger
Yeah.
because I didn't feel like I had that in my life. That's one of the reasons I used to drink so much, is because I didn't feel that sense of connectedness.
Mhm.
Um, but more recently, the games that have really done it for me just in that same way are, I'm not sure if you've ever played probably not, because you say you're more of a Nintendo guy, the Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel series.
No, but please tell me all about
Oh,
it.
I will. So it's a 4-game saga.
Mhm.
Okay, so and each game is about like 100 hours. So you're logging like 400 hours with the same characters. And actually, if you've played, there are 5 games before that that take place in the same universe. So, you could be on your 9th game by the time you finish Trails of Cold Steel 4. And the amount that these characters go through and the way that you see them develop and grow, and I'm not going to give anyone any spoilers because everyone should play these games. By the end of that game, I was bawling like a little baby. I was bawling like a little baby, probably because I felt like I was gonna miss my friends. I had
Yeah.
spent so much time with these people, these characters, that they felt more real to me than a lot of real people that I know, and, you know, that might actually be a bit of a problem. I might wanna look into that, um but seeing them overcome struggles in that way, and just the level of development, the amount of world building in that game is in that series of games is really like nothing else I've ever seen. There's a little bit of fan service and, a little bit of cheesy dialogue, but come on, it's a JRPG. Like, what do you expect? I don't need everything to be dark and gritty all the time.
I gotta say, Tara, I think you'd really, even though it's not an RPG or whatever, or even if you just want to look at, maybe the story on YouTube, or just maybe just someone going through all the cutscenes, but you would actually, the game I was going to bring up, you would actually really like this Guardians of the Galaxy game, in a sense where, whatever, who gives a shit if it's Marvel or not? It's 5 people in space that happen to reluctantly love each other, and
Oh.
you're in a situation
Mhm.
of complete dysfunction where you begin the game where you're 13 years old and you're still on Earth, and you're talking to your mom. But the thing is, any Marvel fan knows that this has got Bambi written all over it. Like, shit's going to
Mm.
go down in order for
Oh.
you to be a guy in space surrounded by misfits. This has to go badly. But the
Mhm.
actor and the animation just did such a good job at displaying the soul of this mother character and your bond with her, that in the beginning of the game you're already missing her and you don't even know what happens.
Oh.
And then you wake up from a dream to this character named Drax waking you up to tell you the mission's about to start and how he doesn't trust one of the other team members. So you're
Mhm.
you're just waking up into this dysfunction, And spoiler or not, I mean, come on, they're a team. They've been in two movies. Third one being, it's not got nothing to do with the movies, but just these characters in general and their dynamic. It's really beautiful to see them all come together, and the acting, directing, and everything is so good that it literally changes like level to level to show an evolution of how they're actually bonding and they need each other. And
Oh, wow.
God, it's winning all
Mhm.
these game awards based on
Yeah.
writing and narrative. And I also interviewed the narrative director, and that's another interview. The thing is, the reason why it's taking a little longer is because I've looked through our pictures and clips, and to me, I'm just kind of like, this game meant so much to me that I'm willing to take a bunch of personal time and just share this experience and highlight the effort of these people who work behind the scenes that never get that kind of like public
Yeah.
public celebration that they
Yeah.
should. I mean, come on,
I
why the
agree.
hell not? If you could talk to the writers of Final Fantasy like 4, wouldn't you?
Of
Be like,
course. Well, I think the
yeah,
translation went through several degrees of destruction before it got to the version that I played. But,
yeah.
yeah, or if I could talk to the creators of, the script of that, probably like 20 million page long script of Trails of Cold Steel. Yeah, it's the behind the scenes
You
kind
could.
of.
Sometimes people don't give them enough credit, so,
Mm.
you never know.
Yeah. No, it
But
really is the writing in a game that makes it compelling for me. Right.
yeah, is it the writing or the voice? Is there a voice acting performance in a video game that particularly got you, or is it always reading?
Well, used to be able to get jabbed in the heart by a game back when there weren't any voice actors, and
Mhm.
I used to be kinda snobby about wanting not liking the English voices. I think it's because one of the first games I played that had voice acting was Final Fantasy X,
Ah.
and, I don't know if anyone's listening, the guy who plays Titus kinda sounds like an adolescent Christian Slater, and the girl who plays Yuna always talks in this breathy voice and makes these weird pauses,
Mhm.
and I just didn't like their and the voice acting actually ruined the characters for me.
Okay.
So then when I replayed the game a couple of years later, I tried to kinda I can, like, turn the volume off, and I'm really sorry to those voice actors, and I'm sure you did wonderful work on many other games. It just wasn't my thing because of my Christian Slater association. Um and also the unit character reminded me of Felicity, so it kinda took me out of the game a little bit, but I feel like they've gotten better and better and better and the more I play games, the more I see characters that are in all these other games, like, I was playing this game called Ys, YS, Ys 8, and I'm like, "That voice sounds familiar." And then my boyfriend's like, "It's Reen Schwarzer," and we're like, "It's Reen Schwarzer!" We're playing Near Replicant right now, and when this character grows up, he goes from a boy to a man, and he
Yeah.
starts talking in this kind of when we're like, "Oh my god, it's Alvin from Tales of Arise!" And you start to be able to hear all the voices.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so they're really doing a phenomenal job. But, I can't think of any one particular voice thing in particular, but I know that they certainly don't bug me anymore. So they're getting a lot better, but
I wanna make sure I look up her name. 1 second.
oh, no, the voice actor who did Yuna, who's gonna hate me now, I'm sorry.
No, 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 no.
But, yeah, but I also feel that with JRPGs, for a really long time, I was not doing well, emotionally, mentally with
Mhm.
and when I would play these games, I got to feel like I was doing something good in a way, even though I
Yeah.
knew it was just a game. I kinda got to save the world a little, and I got to make friends, and,
That's what I was saying about Guardian. I swear to God, like, it was during New Year's, like,
mm,
don't go anywhere type thing again, and just hearing their banter, there's so much banter in the game, I
mm,
felt like I had company, even though Melissa's been great company 2
yeah,
years running, hiding in our homes.
mhm,
It was really cool to feel like a part of something, and that's the first time audio-wise I've ever liked to have that much voice acting around, because usually it's just, like you said, the performance you have in your imagination as you read is the greatest definitive version of
Mhm.
whatever that dialogue is. But considering you're a voice actress, do you think is there any like trepidation of if you ever have to do a voice for a game, will you like self-analyze yourself to the extent where you'll be worried that someone years from now will be like, "Oh, I love the game except for that fucking
Oh,
performance."
of course, of
Yeah.
course. I self-analyze everything I do. Like, I wish
Mm,
that had gone away. The only difference is I can kind of, I can kind of notice when that tape starts playing, and I can put it on pause,
yeah.
and take a moment and decide to actively disagree with what the tape was saying.
Yeah.
But the tape is usually playing for a good amount of time before I make that intervention. So there's still a lot of nasty thoughts that get through, you
Yeah.
know? But yeah. Obviously, I would think that, um, even if I did what I thought was the best job of my life, that, like, I'm probably gonna ruin this game for someone. Someone's
You
gonna hate
can't
this.
exactly, you can't please them all.
Yeah.
Here's a really cool comment. It's like the only moment that I found that comes to mind is Ezio watching his family be hung in Assassin's Creed 2. Wow,
Oh.
video games are dark. Damn, but that's a heck of a scene. I have friends that work in Assassin's Creed, but I have never actually played it. But at every Comic Con, there is a lot of Assassin's Creed cosplayers. Like
Mm.
this franchise is the bee's knees. And
Yeah. I've never actually played it because I think for a while I was really kind of turn-based obsessed, and I didn't wanna play any action RPGs, and,
mm,
it wasn't a Japanese role-playing game, and I don't know, I was just very sticky about, like, the kind of things that I wouldn't play, except for the South Park games, which we discussed. But,
yeah,
with that high endorse yeah.
let's talk about those South Park games now. Just they didn't make us cry. Well, actually, no. One moment I think did. It was
Oh, which
extremely
one?
touching. Oh, well, there there's one scene that made me cry because I was laughing so hard. It's in the Stick of Truth where you're miniaturized and your parents start having sex on top of you, and your mom's boob is just
Oh!
your dad's
Oh, no,
balls are
no, no,
swinging on
no,
the
no
ceiling.
balls.
Yeah. But,
Aw.
no, but, honestly, those games were so well made, and it reminded me everything I love about RPG games. Like, wow,
Mhm.
so cool building up the characters, the banter. Like, I would give those South Park games, like, 10 out of 4 stars. Like, oh my god, there's not enough stars I could possibly give them.
Yeah, and I didn't expect to like them as much as I did. I just thought, "Well, I'm gonna play these for a lark," but they were really engaging, and they took all the best things from the series and just even the second game, you remember you're going around and collecting yaoi?
Yeah.
Oh my god, that was great. I got my little I'm not sure if you can see it back there. I got my sexy, sexy yaoi man over there.
Fun fact, even though I think back in the day when we were 15, I think God, we must have hung out maybe on and off from like May, I want to say, till August, maybe August, September-ish, October-ish, which is like not that long when you think of human years, but
I thought it was longer.
I
Yeah,
know, but but
yeah,
when you're a teenager and every day is brand new,
hmm,
it's like 5 years in teenage years. It's like
yeah.
dog years, when you're a
Well, yeah,
teenager.
'cause we don't remember things actually, like, we kind of remember things in terms of chapters and things that
Yeah.
have novelties. It's when you start doing the same thing all the time that the days start to kind of merge together, or if you just drink so much that you don't remember any days. But
That too,
yeah,
that
yeah.
too. But, fun fact about bringing up South Park right now is that, you and a group of our friends, we all saw South Park Bigger, Longer, Uncut together.
Yes!
Yeah, and Blair Witch Project. We saw 2 monumental
Oh,
1999
yeah.
movies in the
You're
same
dating me,
summer.
Ryan.
I know, I know. We also saw Muppets in Space, which was funny because you hated the Muppets.
I did. I don't know why
Yeah,
I had such an aversion to Muppets. I don't know why they bothered me so much.
but they're
I think
so
I'm over it
vaudeville.
now.
Yeah, they're so vaudeville. I figured you would really
Yeah.
like it. Yeah.
And I love Jim Henson Muppet movies, like The Dark Crystal,
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
like, I love that, but
Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, all that stuff.
but oh, David Bowie was my first crush. I have another pillow with David Bowie on it over there. I just like to sleep with all my all my men.
Is it just like David Bowie? Is it David Bowie, but there's an extra layer that is like, that massive bulge he had in the spandex?
Yes! Yes,
Okay.
I was terrified and fascinated by it at the same
Yeah.
time. I was like, "I've never seen a man wear tight pants like that," and also he's this effeminate man wearing all this makeup, and he's so glamorous, and that's
Yeah.
probably what started my tendency to, like, have huge crushes on gay men. Just see a guy wearing tight pants and a lot of makeup, and I'm just like, "Yes," and he's just like, "Yeah, uh."
I saw a comment before. Oh, by the way, Alan LeGros says the teacher he was referring to
Erica!
is Erica Fair.
Of course, yeah, she
Um,
was my choir director for, like, geez, 10 years, probably.
there, really cool comment before. Non-person human said about Japanese dub is always superior. You were mentioning in your podcast that you're bringing up that you preferred that. So you're a massive Sailor Moon fan back in the day. I'm assuming you still dig the moon.
I still
Um,
dig the moon, got my
but
feelings.
you were mentioning in that game you brought up about how the hero is down, but there's all these fallen friends lending their energy. As you're saying that, I'm like, that sounds an awful lot like the season finale of season
Uh-huh.
1 of
Yeah,
Sailor Moon.
moon power, Mars power, Jupiter power, Venus power, and they all just, like, gonna, like,
And
do their
that
power thing.
the English dub made me cry like fuck back
Oh,
in the day.
yeah, me
And I was
too.
I was a developing teenage male that didn't want to admit he was sad over Sailor Scouts, but I gotta say, like, when I watched that in English, the song is really sweet,
Oh,
"Still
yeah.
Dynamite," and, like, it's really cool.
Listen, one, the only light,
Yeah,
loneliness my darkest fear. I'm not gonna start singing the whole song, but I could.
please.
Maybe another podcast will just sing all the Sailor Moon songs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in that season, everybody out there, if you just need a little bit of reminder, basically what happens is all the Sailor Scouts go to fight Queen Beryl, and one by one they are picked off. Now in the English dub, it is heavily edited, and you're just aware that they kind of disappear in a flash, and you're just like, oh, I guess that went badly.
Yeah.
Where
No,
are they?
they're dead.
Yeah, and then when I eventually saw the Japanese one, they are fucking dead. Like, you see Sailor Jupiter is like
She
in
gets
this
impaled.
impaled. Yeah, it's fucked up. And then at the end, it makes it even more sad rewatching the English one because I still prefer that song. Um, knowing that they're all going to be there for her, even though we're fucking dead, we are going to lend it to you. And it's funny because they did something similar in Dragon Ball Z too in the final episode where he's having this giant spirit ball and he's asking everyone on Earth to take out Majin Buu. He's asking everyone on Earth, please, people, give me your energy. And Earth is like, who the fuck are you? So then this guy
Mm.
named Hercule, aka Mr. Satan in the Japanese one, says, he's famous. He's like really fucking famous. He's like, hey, everybody, help this guy out and give your energy. And you're like, oh, Hercule. So everybody who's a legitimate fighter in Dragon Ball knows that this guy is a fucking loser, like fake. I'll claim I'm champion even though I can't fight. But the rest of the world is just like, yeah, Hercule. So it's kind of like actual celebrity sometime where,
Yeah.
when you know what you know, you're like, oh yeah. And then, like he's kind of like the Tim Toolman Taylor, you could say, of fighting, where it's like everyone knows who he is, but if you know what you know, he's not particularly very good at what he does. But, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking about stuff that made us weep. We even dipped a little bit into anime. Speaking of other anime, is there any other animes that truly opened up your heart wounds and
Oh,
made
you
you
know
sing a different type of song, the Song of Sorrow?
um, yes. Actually, I want to talk about the very, very first anime I ever watched, and I didn't know it was an anime at the time. I didn't even know what anime was. I was like 5 years old.
Yeah.
I I rented this movie with my parents called Unico in the Island of Magic. And it had this picture of a cute little unicorn on it, a really kawaii little unicorn, kind of looked like a Pokemon unicorn. And then I watched it.
Yeah.
And it's a children's movie. Let me just put that out there. And the premise is that there was a puppet
Okay.
who was played with and used by a family and then discarded and then washed up on the ends of the earth. And then the puppet feels so betrayed by the fact that he was just thrown away. His hatred of humanity causes him to come to life and become a sorcerer. It gives him powers, his hatred. So in order to exact his revenge, he goes around and takes people from all the households in this city and turns them into living puppets. And he makes them stand on each other's shoulders, and he builds a castle out of these human bodies, pretty much. And then this little unicorn goes to try to stop him, because that's the kind of evil thing to do, to make a castle out of human bodies. And the sorcerer is just way more powerful than the little unicorn. And then at one point, the unicorn, realizing that he can't beat him, says, "Well, I'll be your friend, Karuku." And then Karuku, the evil sorcerer, starts freaking out. He's like, "No, no!" Because this offer of friendship is making him realize that he has a heart. And as he starts to, warm up a little bit, he starts to slowly die, because his hatred of all living things was the only thing keeping him alive. So then, as the unicorn is just trying to be nice and telling him, "Oh, Karuku, maybe you could have a better life and I'll be your friend," this poor thing just kind of disintegrates and turns back into a lifeless puppet.
Okay.
This is a children's movie.
Yeah, hashtag children's movie. That should be a great English dub for all these fucked up. But Canada did that stuff too, though. Like, well, first of all, Canada was the first place really in North America to embrace anime and dub it, and it was done originally in Vancouver. Because and it's funny, like YTV was like one of those first channels that just needed content, so they're like, "Hey, bring it on." Other channels are like, "What the fuck is this shit?" And then YTV is like, 12. We have 13 hours a day of airtime. Please give us more cartoons. We will dub it. We'll make Samurai Pizza Cats. We'll just do it. But yeah, with anime, it's my friend Justin. He's a dude who's in the army. I think it was called Demon Slayer. It's on it. You can watch it on Netflix.
Yeah,
it's really good. I saw a few of those, and that's heavily emotional. And I find anime just kind of like they're always. It could be so cute and so happy sometimes, but then you could turn the coin, and it will be the darkest, weirdest shit. And it's all made for kids. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. It's that, I mean, a lot of anime isn't made for kids, but it really matches my emotional register, because I'm very mercurial, very extreme. I have this kind of I go really hot and really cold. I experience my emotions in extremes. So the kind of frenetic, almost overly giddy happiness matches my energy level, and the sort of utter, complete, crippling despair also matches me. It for someone who has a borderline personality disorder, as I've been diagnosed with, it actually just it matches my emotional reality really well, in terms of those extremes and those fluctuations. And I'm not sure if it's something about the fact that it's animated, and in a way it's easier to project yourself onto an animation, especially in a Japanese animation, because they kind of, they're very sort of similar in the way that they're done. But it just, to me, it unlocks something emotionally where I feel things way more than I would feel when I would watch something live action. Maybe it's because it taps into the vulnerable part of me that remembers being a child watching animated movies. Or maybe it's because there are just certain things that wouldn't be palatable. Like the level of violence in some animes would not be, I wouldn't watch it if it was live action. I would find it gross. But it allows me to consume content that would otherwise be too disturbing for me if it wasn't mediated by the fact that it was animated with a bunch of sexy ladies in it. I remember there was this one anime I watched. There was a period in my life where things weren't going well for me, and I just wasn't feeling any of it. I wasn't talking about it. And when I wanted to feel my feelings, I would go with my partner to the Grande Bibliothèque in Montreal. It's this huge library, and they had viewing stations where you could take out certain videos and sit down and watch them there. And we would just kind of plug in an anime, put on our headphones, watch it, and cry. And it was kind of the only place in which I was giving myself permission to feel my feelings.
Okay.
And there was this one part in particular called Elfin Lied. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it. It's ELF.
I'm a huge poser when it comes to anime. I'm just gonna say,
Oh.
like, I've heard of the anime that everyone else has heard
Oh
of.
yeah,
I'm
like,
like, yeah,
the Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, Death Note, that kind of stuff.
yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my God, it was so like I was bawling like a
Oh,
little
speaking of,
girl after every episode. Yeah.
speaking
Oh
of,
yeah. Someone just brought up FMA.
yeah, Full Metal
Oh my
Alchemist.
goodness.
Two boys lose their mother and try to bring her back with alchemy,
Oh,
but
and the
she
thing with
comes
the
back as a soulless creature, and it costs one of the boys his body. The other loses his arm
uh-huh.
and leg.
Uh-huh.
Jesus Christ!
Oh yeah, and the dog and the little girl. I'm not gonna you know what you know what I'm talking about if you know this anime. Oh goodness.
Berserk is one of those heavy animes. Just watched it last year. You ever
Mm.
hear of Berserk?
I've heard of it, but it's on I have so many ones on my list that I haven't made it to yet. Uh,
Mm,
Mawaru, am I saying that right? Mawaru Penguin Drum, was another one that just blew my mind by how disturbing and weird it was.
yeah,
It's by the same director that did Revolutionary Girl Utena in the 90s, and visually and psychologically, you kind of finish every episode going, what just happened to my mind and my heart?"
yeah.
Like, ah.
You know what? Another thing about anime, and we'll get back into video games soon because there's so many video games to talk about. And I finally found a voice actress I wanted to give credit for. But right before we do that, I just saw it's amazing that in the '90s with shows like X-Men, they finally North America finally embraced that kind of like long form storytelling where there's a part 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because usually they're not thinking about that. They're just thinking about A, syndication, and B, will the animation come back in time to make the episodes we're showing make sense, because sometimes we have to air them out of order. For
Mm,
example, one episode in X-Men the animated series that takes place right after Jean Grey as the Phoenix dies. And then there's this episode called No Mutant is an Island, where Cyclops kind of goes soul searching to the orphanage he used to be in. But due to poor animation and schedule delays and all that, that episode only premiered 2 seasons later.
oh no.
Yeah. Or a season later, 2 seasons later. So generally in North America, they were avoiding that. But anime always did that. They always had a lingering story. And
Mm.
that's really interesting. And I'm hard pressed to think of an anime show that doesn't do that. I mean, even Pokemon was the adventure of the day, but in general, they still were working to the
Oh,
same
there's
tournament.
still an overarching narrative, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It was funny though. I never saw the first episode of Pokemon until recently, and I never liked that show because I was just like, why are you doing this? Like,
Well, they're
yeah,
enslaving animals and making them fight each other. People don't like it when people do that with dogs.
yeah.
Mm.
But I found finally saw the first episode, and the whole show made sense to me. It's
Mm.
that Gary is an asshole, and he should not be the best at Pokemon. Like that's pretty
Mm.
much it. And I'm just
Oh,
like,
yes, he's a
then
jerk. That's the whole
rewatching it.
that's the whole origin story. That guy's a jerk.
The same summer I was hanging out with you guys, the show Digimon came out, and I embraced that one.
Mm.
And because that was kinda like this, it's kinda like Lost before Lost came out, where it's just a bunch of people on an island and fucking crazy stuff's happening with creatures, and they need to get off said island. But there's also this narrative of there was this guy named the Pokemon Emperor that was like the bad guy, but then he becomes their friend. And that's my favorite part of all storytelling, is when the person you think is your enemy becomes your best fucking friend.
Oh, and it happens all the time because they always want
Yeah.
like it seems to be this thing where you go in to kill the bad guy, but then you're like, but wait, there might be some good in you after all. And the
Yeah.
bad guy's like, no, I am evil. And then like, but no, maybe you could be good. And he's like, maybe. And there's this like unwillingness to actually, um, uh, it's hope, right? It's this
Yeah. Hope.
unwillingness to dismiss things as being that black and white, as being like good and evil, of like seeing that there's a possibility for redemption in even the villains in a lot of cases. One
Yeah,
thing I was joking.
like Zoicide, like Zoya's side, and like yeah, all Queen Barrels, like all Queen
Oh,
Barrels
Like
henchmen.
Nephlite and
And
Molly.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Nephlite.
Oh,
Wow.
oh, that was so sweet. And
Molly, I guess we're never gonna have that chocolate parfait.
oh, that was such a sweet episode too. And
I know.
I really like it when villains aren't so one dimensional and they have all these layers, and you're just kind of like, and then all of a sudden you kind of dig the villains more.
Mm.
Oh, it's beautiful when that really works out. But holy shit. Okay, so true fucking story. In Power Rangers, it did that to me when Tommy was like evil and like all week. It was like 5 episode, which was in 10-year-old years must have been 4 fucking months to me. But 5 days in a row, they're showing Green with evil. And every day I'm like, this is the episode where he's going to become a good guy, right? And just glued to the television. And a similar thing happened where Darian and Serena finally get together. And then,
Oh.
they don't remember each other. And then they're finally getting together, and he becomes a fucking bad guy. And you're
Yeah, he
just
gets
like,
possessed by Queen Beryl. Tuxedo Mask gets possessed about like 5 times in
I know.
the series. You know, like he's. I feel sorry for him because he's such sort of like a disposable foil character. You know, he's just kind of like, hey, I'm a man and I am wearing a tuxedo. Hey, I'm gonna get possessed again. Sailor Moon's gonna have to rescue me. It's kind of a funny role reversal, and when you think of him sort of being the princess in that equation, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
he showed up, threw a flower, said something,
Said something semi-poetic and
semi-poetic, and fucked off. He's kind of like the silent Bob of of whatever Kevin Smith adventure that Sailor Moon was going through.
Mhm.
Um,
But there were
I gotta
also there's also a lot. Oh, sorry.
no, please go for it.
I was just gonna say that there's also those gut-wrenching moments that happen a lot in anime and video games where someone that you think is your friend all of a sudden becomes a bad guy, and you're like,
You were mentioning
"What?
Kane. You
What?
were
I
mentioning
upgraded
Kane.
all their equipment. I
You
gained
mentioned
levels with that person. I spent good fake money on that person, and now they're a bad guy?"
You mentioned
Mm,
in your podcast, I remember you were mentioning Kane from Final Fantasy IV /
mm.
AKA 2 North American wise. That was a big heel turn that really had an
Yeah,
effect.
he keeps getting possessed too. He keeps just getting possessed. But then part of him's like, well, I know I was possessed, but it also gave me a good opportunity to kidnap this chick that I'm into. It's like, ooh.
Have
I'm
you
still surprised by how okay they were with that whole thing afterwards. But
yeah, it just happened back then. Oh, we're getting really cool comments. What are you saying, non-person human? You're saying I like how the remake of Sailor Moon Crystal just completely throws all the character development filler. You know what? It's kind of interesting that Sailor Moon Crystal, Ray doesn't hate Serena
no,
that
that was
much at
something
all.
just something that they invented for the anime. A lot of what they was in the anime, like for example, the generals, the 4 generals in the first season, like kind of having personalities, the whole thing with Nephlite and Molly, and the whole thing with like Zoisite and Malachite, who by the way, Zoisite was never a woman, they were gay. That whole
Mhm.
thing was made up for the anime and it wasn't present in the manga. What Crystal does really is it follows the manga very directly, like almost frame by frame. When I was watching it, I'm like, I remember that picture. I remember that picture. I remember that picture. And they do a really wonderful job of faithfully adapting the manga. But
I
I liked some, but I noticed when I watched it how much I missed all that sort of silly filler stuff though. Because I
Me
felt like
too.
the Sailor Scouts, like the secondary Sailor Scouts, didn't really have any personalities left.
Especially Lita. Well, what is her name in
Makoto.
Makoto?
Yeah.
Makoto is my favorite.
Mm.
Well, besides, and what's Ray's name in the original?
Ray.
Ray.
Just
Okay, so Ray and
REI.
Makoto. Yeah, Ray and Makoto. I love Makoto, like how she just was beating the shit out of bullies and stuff.
Mhm.
I always dug strong women, always from day one.
Mhm.
And yeah, like it was just really cool how she's just like, oh, he reminds me of my old boyfriend, like all that kind of
All the
shit.
time, but yet she's a tough girl, but she has, like, this really soft heart. Yeah,
Yeah,
and there's still a little bit of that in the manga, but not as much, and Rei's personality is completely different in the anime and the manga, which was hard for me because I was always team Sailor Mars, but I'm
nice.
like, "What team am I on?" Because in the manga, she's just kind of, like, calm, spiritual, but sort of snobby woman,
Yeah.
and she doesn't have that whole and she's not boy crazy at all. She doesn't have anything going on with some guy named Chad. Um, Chad, really.
I
And
really
she
did
doesn't
love.
have yeah, she doesn't have that sort of thing with Serena either. So, um, uh, but I noticed that if you look in the further seasons, Ray and Serena often have like or Ray and Usagi usually have like the last moment together before like something really bad happens, as a
Yeah.
sort of demonstration of the ways that she's abusive to her, shows her that she loves her. Good messages.
Oh,
Um,
that's lovely.
yeah, I was always Team Ray just because I think she was a lot of things that I wasn't. She was kind of like brave and fiery and passionate and pretty and I was like, I want to be like that. So I tended to like the characters that I were embodied things that I wanted to be, and I tended to actually dislike the characters that were actually like me. Like I was actually way more of a Sailor Moon. I was a bit of a clumsy crybaby, over emotional kind of.
I was gonna say, Tara, like you would fucking if they ever made a live action Sailor Moon, considering you're blonde already, but your versatility as an actress would totally you would fucking nail that role so well. Like, and
Aw.
I know you want to be like, you could totally play fucking Sailor Mars too. But I'm just saying, you'd probably get paid way more to be Sailor Moon. But
Well, shave maybe 20 years off me and
well, no, I think it would be fucking rad to make a Sailor Moon show or whatever. Yeah, show to be like, remember what we did 20 years ago? Yeah, the
Mm.
Sailor Wars and all that kind of stuff.
I'd be
And
so scared if they just butchered, like, any sort of a live adaptation of it, like, God, would they
haven't you seen the fucking live adaptation like from 15 years ago? The
like
live
like
action Sailor Moon.
the cute little Japanese ones that they did, like, on oh, yeah, those were cute, but I mean, like, if, like, Hollywood got their
Oh,
hands on
okay.
it and all of a sudden Scarlett Johansson is playing all the scouts, and
Yeah, Chris Pratt's tuxedo mask,
yeah.
which is actually kind of fucking funny when I say that out loud. Um,
Yeah, they have, like, that chick from Euphoria playing Sailor Mars, and like, "No, no," Zendaya or whatever her name is, like, something,
yeah.
"No, no, no, stop ruining my childhood. Don't do it. Don't do
Speaking of
it."
ruining childhood, they almost ruined your childhood before it even began. Have you ever seen like the super secret someone was videotaping a television and was never supposed to be spoken of again, but they like made a North American Sailor Moon animated intro at least, like
Oh,
to show
yes,
them
yes,
what
I did, that looks like She-Ra, kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was
yeah.
terrible, it was great.
I gotta say I actually really did like the English voice acting in Sailor Moon a lot, like especially
Me too, like, I have a really strong place in my heart for it now. It
mhm,
just, like, when I listened to the Japanese one and I saw the translation, I realized how much I was missing in the original one.
yeah.
And I think it was also a lot of it was about image for me, like, I wanted to be that kind of cool nerd that, like, "No, no, no, I don't do dubs. I only listen to the original Japanese with the subtitles because
Well, Tao,
that's
you
just the kind
must
of geek that
know
I am." I don't know
I
why my wrists are going limp when I'm
I do not listen to Linkin Park and Fall Out Boy. I listen to Misfits and old Green Day. It's the
Oh
same
my
sh
god,
we're all
yes,
full
like
of shit, dude. We're all
yeah,
full of
but
shit.
I love the '80s punk, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
Bad Religion and Pennywise. Were they even I don't even know. I honestly don't like punk music. I just pretended I just sort of pretended I did because I don't know, it felt and my sister did and,
Yeah,
like, the people we hung out with did, but I was just really into the Broadway musicals and, like, I did like Tool and like
yeah.
Radiohead and stuff like that, but like I was like, "What? Why are you yelling so much?" It's like, "Why are you mad? Aren't you making a love like, you're in a band. Your life is good. Why are you so mad?"
Yeah. Oh, hey, we got more comments here. My favorite, it was always the first season of the original dub Sailor Moon, but I like Crystal a whole lot more. You know what? I like Crystal a lot.
Mm,
I really appreciate for what it is, and I can like love both of them because first of all, there's a few decades between their productions,
mhm.
and if anything, I got to see so much more Sailor Moon because I never saw later seasons past season 3 or 4.
Oh,
Like, I
no.
never saw Sailor Moon S and Stars and all that.
Yeah.
So, when I saw it in Crystal, I was like, holy shit, I'm getting a whole fucking season in like 6 episodes. This is usually like 20 episodes and it's in 6. Like the mad scientist guy and
Oh,
the
see, Sailor Moon S is a tragic, tragic
Mhm.
season. It really is, and I don't think they knew what to do with it on YTV because you have these lesbians and you have Sailor
Yeah,
Scouts wanting to, and there's like human sacrifice shit going on, and
I don't think
like
it ever aired on YTV,
it
to be
did
honest.
eventually.
Oh, they
They
did?
had a lot of
Wow,
different
okay.
voice actors because they waited several years, and they did this weird thing where they made the lesbian characters cousins, because that's less
Yeah,
weird to have cousins that are holding hands and living together and staring at each other amorously all the time.
yeah.
Mm.
Oh, man. Okay, so
But, yeah, I can't say like, Crystal is great, but something can't replace your first love, you know? Like, something
no.
can't come in and swoop the first thing that gave you intense body dysmorphia. Uh,
Well,
like,
it's really what's cool, though, is that Sailor Moon Crystal is someone's first love, you know?
it
Like,
is for someone else, yeah.
yeah, for sure. Like the newer generation of kids might really respond to that more, and if
Mhm.
anything, might make them curious and go back into history a little bit. They did a re-edit of Dragon Ball called Dragon Ball Super, I think, but where they really cut out all the filler. But I'm like, man, if they redrew all of Dragon Ball like Sailor Moon Crystal and did it that way, I'd be very curious to see that. Even though they still
Hmm.
make news stories all the time. That's the interesting thing about it. They make news stories. Did you check out the new Sailor Moon movies that were on Netflix, I think
Oh, yeah, yeah, well,
2 years ago? Yeah.
those were the Super S seasons that they condensed into, 2 movies for for Crystal, because in the manga, the arc is not that long, the Dead Moon arc, so
Okay.
they put it into a couple of movies, 'cause there's Sailor Moon Super S in the original anime. That's just I mean, I like a little bit of filler, but there is so much filler
Mm,
in it. It gets really tedious.
okay.
Yeah. Um,
So interesting. I believe her name's Sugar Lynn. She was a personality on YTV. She was Sugar, but she was also the voice of Reenie in the English dub of
oh.
Sailor Moon. She has a very, very unique voice. When you hear her
Yeah,
voice,
she
you
was
just
really, really good at it sounding really annoying,
yeah.
but also, like, being able to pull it back and sounding vulnerable. So it's like just on the when I'm at the moment where I wanna backhand Rainy, I'm just like, "Oh, poor kid."
Um, I it's fun. I remember, you were mentioning you wanted to be Mars. I'm like, well, I did really like Tuxedo Mask though, because I like wearing suits and,
Mm.
I like throwing flowers. So,
You
or
like throwing
roses.
flowers.
I
The hobby of yours, is it?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, I like
You
tossing around
part of like
roses.
a flower throwing order? Do you guys, like, practice or
Yeah, I'm still terrible at it, but,
Mm.
I do try. I'm the Rudy of my flower throwing,
Mhm.
I win the sportsmanship award,
Oh, okay, okay, like A for
no one's
effort.
giving me any yeah, no one's giving me any gold medals for,
Well, I think they
my
give
flower.
medals to everyone now just for participation because, like,
Exactly.
everyone's a winner.
Yeah, they call it Ryan's Law, like, they got
Mm.
sick of the crying. But but, yeah, I remember this episode where well, I went as the Phantom of the Opera when I was 11 for Halloween at school, when you do, you get to go to school and wear your costume, which was, like, the highlight of, some kid that really begs for attention all the time like
For
myself.
sure.
And, my friend Marjorie was like, "Oh, it's Tuxedo Mask," and at first I'm like, "Fuck no, I'm the fan of the opera," and then, like, put 2 and 2 together, I'm like, "Hey, wait a second, all the ladies are actually paying attention to my weird buck tooth, curly-haired self."
Aw.
Yes, I'm Tuxedo Mask, and by the end of the day, just owned it.
By the
But
end of
I
the
did
day, you have, like, 3 girlfriends.
yeah,
They're
but
like, "Oh my god!"
I didn't own it. I didn't really look like Darian, I looked more like Melvin when he was pretending to be Tuxedo Melvin
Oh,
and
I'm sure you
throwing
didn't look like Melvin.
yeah. No, I'm sure it was Melvin and stuff. It's funny how, we identify with like people in cartoons as like this fucking cool we don't identify, but we are attracted to these cool confident people, but at the
Mm.
same time there's all these kind of like cannon fodder nerds that exist in these shows for the cool people to save, and it's just like, man, if all this was live action, I think I would have been the Melvin though.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, no,
yeah.
yeah, I'd probably be like the fodder person.
I'd be the Xander,
I
you
can't really
know?
do a Brooklyn accent, but I'd probably be more of a Molly. Yeah.
Yeah, and it makes you
Mm.
wonder, like, why does Molly have a Brooklyn accent just chilling in Tokyo?
Yeah, I don't
L
know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was an odd choice, and why Sailor Mercury has an almost a British accent, but not. I don't know, but
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it was the early days of, you know, I don't know,
Well,
but
Luna
whatever.
Luna had a straight up British accent, didn't she? Like,
Sort of,
Sailor
yeah.
Moon. Yeah, she sounded like Murder, She Wrote a
A li
little bit.
a little,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Um, okay, oh, and, non-person was telling me about, it was called Dragon Ball Kai. Okay, ask about ask what the hell is that? Ask a flat I I I I
Escaflowne?
don't know I don't know my
Mm,
stuff, I'm a poser. What's
your shoujo.
Escaflowne? Yeah,
I'm not familiar with that one.
me neither.
Honestly, the library was really the place where I would go to watch my anime, even when I didn't cry, just because you could sit there and you just dialed in. The thing with
Yeah,
anime is, like, yes, I am still a bit of a snob, but I don't like to watch it dubbed. I just don't.
okay.
And when I'm at home and I'm trying to watch anime, it's like I can't just sit still and watch it. So the great thing about sitting at the library was that, like, it's like I was just kind of like dialed in, like I was at the theater, except it was, just kind of sitting in a bed bug infested chair in the middle of the city. Also kind of like a theater. But yeah, so I'm trying to sort of discipline myself to get back into watching some, because so many people have recommended so many great series to me, and I'm just like, I'm going to get to that if I could sit still for more than 20 minutes.
And we live in this world where I'm always, like, playing them on my phone or checking updates I don't fucking need. It's
Yeah.
crazy it's crazy when you think about it. I was walking the dog earlier today, and I had a conversation with my mom earlier where she was talking about how much she pays for internet and cable. I'm like, "Fuck, I don't remember the last time I owned cable." But I'm like, "Man, remember when our enjoyment, we were at the mercy of their schedule, and God forbid if they changed the schedule or showed a rerun or something like that, the expectations we had for that day would be fucked."
But we would watch the reruns, because that
Yeah.
there was no other option. And I think there's something really sad about the amount of choices that we have now in terms of the media that we consume, because
Mhm.
I don't know if anything will ever hold. Oh, the fact that Sailor Moon was the only thing out there really at the time, especially like for that particular genre. There was Dragon Ball 2, but that was more of a boy thing.
Yeah.
No, I watched it and I watched it again, and I taped it on my VHS tapes, and I watched it
Yeah.
again, and I watched it again, and that level of obsession was also just kind of part of my personality because 'cause I'm very obsessive. But,
Mm.
some having that intimate love for that one show, uh, it's hard to do when there's after you finish a show, you can binge watch it in one session, and then you move on to the next one, and you move on to the next one. The relationships that I have with the media that I consumed when I was a kid or in my teens, it feels like there's this, like, really deep connection with it, because not only was was it the only thing going on and I would watch whatever it was multiple times, but what was on. So everyone that you went to school with knew the same things. They had the same references. So it created this ability to, even if you were just talking about how much you hated something that was on TV, like, oh my God, Dawson's Creek, I hate Joey so much. She's such a pain in the ass. But yet you still watched Dawson's Creek long enough to talk about how much you hated it because it was the only thing on TV. And like, what, you're going to watch Frasier? Maybe some people do. But so just the idea of having these common references and being able to cultivate a love for something because you're not immediately chasing the next thing that's going to give you that feeling. Um, because they're, yeah, so it makes me sad when I think of, because I know if I was 12 years old now and I watched Sailor Moon, I would probably love it, but I would
Mm.
probably also just watch something else right afterwards. And I wouldn't be going downtown to Chinatown and spending all my babysitting money on Sailor Moon cards. And, I wouldn't be going to Chinatown again and buying these very overpriced fan subbed VHSs of the later episodes and bringing them over to my friend's house and being like, "Oh my God, you got an episode from a later season," and like
Yeah.
bootleg thing from like that sort of thing. It just wouldn't happen now.
We
Mhm.
paid a lot of money for copied
Mm.
VHS, folk.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
Oh,
out
yeah.
there, oh my god, like, there used to be this place called Rock on Stock in Montreal
Yeah,
that would
yeah, I
just
remember that.
sell bootlegs of shitty sounding Metallica concerts, like the worst, for like 20, $30 each for a copied cassette, and people would buy them, and it just was the way. And then when YouTube happened seemingly almost overnight, like, these businesses just didn't have a
It's
business
so
anymore.
sad, and even though
Yeah.
they were kind of selling, copyrighted material anyways, whatever, but there was this
Mm.
kind of social currency aspect to it too, where if you were the person who had the bootlegged copy of the thing, you could bring it to the party and lend it to your friends,
Yeah,
and it was cool.
it was.
And yeah, and, you could make copies for your friends too, and and now it's sort of like, well, anyone can just now it's just, "Oh, you can send someone a link." And it doesn't create that same level of bonding. I
Of
I
course.
love talking to people from my generation just because they have the same, like they know about the same things, but I wonder like if oh god, this is when I'm getting old when I'm talking about the kids of today. But I do wonder if the kids of today, when they're older, are gonna have that same sort of ability to kind of look back and have this agree on the same reality, even on a basic thing such like very basic thing like TV shows and music and media and things like that.
Yeah, when you're kind of like you're making your own schedule when it comes to consuming the content, you don't have as much in common with somebody where in school the next day they're like, "Oh my god, did you see Beast Wars?" It's like, "Yeah, we," because we all had that bonding moment where at 4 something, we all had to run to the TV and make sure no one was using it in order to catch this ongoing story and then talk about the next day. And some people call it the water cooler discussions and how much they
Mm,
appreciate that Star Wars original shows from Disney Plus only air once a week as opposed to the whole binge watching aspect because you have a week to talk to people about it until the next one comes out and actually process the information. Now
yeah.
I love binge watching and I got real used to it, but at the same time I'm aware of what it's like when I watched 24 for the first time on DVD and I was watching episodes to finish it. By the time I just wanted to see what would happen, and
Mhm.
4
Start
episodes would go
skipping through parts of it. It's like, "Oh, I don't like this character, next."
in and out the other, and did not process it on a weekly basis like it was originally intended.
Mhm.
But, 24, I think, was the first show ever to, really, be binge worthy, you can
Mm.
say, but even though it was a weekly show. We have a comment right here. It's like, "Oh, they changed the schedule for the Christmas episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer on YTV, and I ended up missing it and only caught the repeat years later."
Oh, no, you didn't put in your tape player? And
Yeah,
that
well,
was the thing too, like, if you were like, "Oh my god, I missed an episode of something," you had to, like, call your friends and
yeah.
ask them if maybe someone taped it, and then you would have to admit to them that you liked Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and maybe you didn't wanna do that depending on who you are. Mm.
There's a family friend named Frank Marino. He's a Montreal guitar player. He's well known amongst the guitar players, but I just knew
Mm.
him as Frank, and he loved video games, and he actually got me into Legend of Zelda when I was a kid because he had a Link to the Past, and I was just playing. I didn't know how to play it. I was just fucking fascinated by
Mm.
it and the storytelling of it. But he was really hip to be square in a sense where he would record The Simpsons all on a VHS, and he had seasons of The Simpsons up until this point, first 3 years, all on VHSs. And I look, everybody takes it for granted that you could watch whatever you want in a row, or you could go on Netflix, you could watch anything you like, you could watch them all in a row, or even bi-weekly. But
Yeah,
man,
pirate whatever you want on the internet.
in 1993, when you could watch 12 episodes of The Simpsons in a fucking row on a VHS tape. That VHS tape was fucking godly.
Mm.
It's so powerful to do that. And it took a lot of discipline and effort for somebody to set their VCR every single week, make sure they
Oh,
get it
yeah.
in there,
Oh, yeah.
rewind the tape to the right part.
Yeah, yeah. And there's
Yeah.
also this idea of compromise too, whereas like there was like the family TV, right? And so you had to navigate, it's like, well, this is when my stories are on. Are you guys okay with that? And let's say you're all sitting down and watching a movie, you have to agree on something. So I'm gonna end up watching some things that I didn't want to watch, but then it makes me have to watch things that I wouldn't have chosen, which sometimes I'm really happy about, and vice
Mhm.
versa. But now it's sort of like, if we make dinner here and let's say like my parents are downstairs and they want to watch something that I just go upstairs because I have my own PlayStation and Netflix and this and that and the other thing, and it's sad.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and screens, individual screens, I mean, and it's funny to say, I'm like, I don't watch sports at all, and I don't even watch wrestling anymore, but every time WrestleMania would come, my friends and I would go to this bar and we would all watch it. But the thing is, when you're all watching the same screen together, there's this kinetic energy you feel where you're almost even more prone to showing excitement for it because you're all sharing the same experience, looking all in the same direction at the same time.
Hmm.
Same bar, renovated and started to have screens and images everywhere, and even on the table there was everywhere. So the same bar, a year or two later, we're watching WrestleMania and it is a fractured experience because when you
Mm.
all have your own screens, you're less tempted to participate with each other in whatever you're experiencing.
Yeah.
So what you're saying about it's kind of sad when you have all these abilities to, the family could all watch Stranger Things, but if you're all watching it on your own time, as opposed
Mhm.
to let's all get together and watch it together. Like half the time, Melissa and I, when we watch something, we watch a lot of Simpsons together, or we watch a shitload of Christmas movies together. We kind of make it a little mini event and keep that alive in a sense because
Yeah.
she can watch it on her time, I can watch on my time, but there is something really cool about watching something together.
Yeah, exactly. I do that with my partner too, where we do like,
Mm,
where we'll watch a show together. And actually, we play a lot of video games together too, because it's the only way that I can really justify playing them
okay.
at my age. Because if it's like something that I'm doing together as like a bonding experience with someone that, we're
Mhm.
going on this journey together and it's kind of like our couple time because we're so cool. Then I can sort of justify the experience, as opposed to just sort of like sitting in my room being like, I don't really have a grown-up job, but I'm gonna save the world.
And you get invested in that, and we'll bring it back to video games right now, where when you're so like in Legend of Zelda, some of the best games were like, even though I'm not a big fan of the way it looks, Wind Waker's got this great story where you think it's going one way, and then all of a sudden, everything you thought about it was wrong, and you find out what happened to Hyrule. Why is the world full of water? You find out. You go a little bit into the past, and from that moment, I was hooked. I'm like, I need to finish this game because I am going to save Hyrule. It is me and Zelda, but it is me. I am Link now. It's not just I'm watching Link do this. I need to help Link finish this.
Ah,
And yeah,
I really relate to that, and I'm sorry to get a little bit dark, but,
get
there was this one
dark.
there was this one time that I was hospitalized in the psychiatric ward, which is not nearly as fun as it seems in that Angelina Jolie and Winona Ryder movie there,
Mm,
um, and I begged them to let me keep my portable gaming device, my PSP or my PS Vita, because
mhm,
it made me feel like there was a reason to stay alive in a way, because I wasn't finished the mission yet. Like,
mhm,
I still had to build my social links with my characters, I still had to, like, I had unfinished business, and at the time, I didn't even really feel like I had much unfinished business in my life because I was just in a dark place, but the fact that
mm,
I had started this journey with these characters in this game made me feel like, I had a reason to get out of bed, even if it was just to get my console and then go back to bed with it. But it kept me out of the deeper parts of despair that I otherwise would have experienced. And even even the ways that in JRPGs particularly, you're doing a lot of good deeds. A lot of the side quests have to do with hey, you're gonna help the old lady mail her letters, or you're gonna help so and so find his wallet, or you're doing a lot of Boy Scout, Girl Scout kinda fetch quests. And
mm,
it affirmed to me that yes, I still was the person that was gonna help an old lady mail her letters. Like I still was a good guy. And um because I still wanted to do that, and even in games that had a social link component where you could, based on what you say to certain characters, they'll react certain ways. The fact that I always wanted to be nice to the characters in my game made me feel like, okay, maybe you're not a terrible person because you always want to say the nice things to the girls, even if it's just because you want to, mac them. But yeah.
Wasn't there a game called Fable or something where you could either become like this angel or you could seriously fucking become a demon or something?
I don't know. I'm not sure about that one. There is one game that I played called Shin Megami Tensei
Hmm.
4 Apocalypse, where that's a mouthful, I know. Where at the end you have
Yes, that old classic.
yeah, you have to. Well, it is popular amongst people who like it. It was the source game, the source series for the Persona series, and
Mm.
you get to choose whether you go into the dark, you go towards the dark and kill all your teammates and become super, super strong, or if you keep your teammates and stay weak, you know? So that's
I
that's
like
an
that.
that's an interesting deal with the devil that you have a chance to make in that one.
In the Guardians of the Galaxy game I was telling you about, you do have a choice of saying you can either make the situation worse or you could kind of compliment your teammate or something like that, and it
Mm.
changes the dialogue in the scene that happens. And I've been making this joke. I'm like literally the Ted Lasso of that game. Like every time I could say anything motivational to everybody, that's
Yeah.
the step I take. And I recommend the show, by the way, Ted Lasso, to anybody who just kind of wants to feel good,
Oh,
because
good.
because even if you don't like soccer, it really doesn't fucking matter. It's just an interesting. It's just this really positive, like slightly cowboyish type of football coach gets hired to coach a soccer team in England, and for nefarious reasons, but he's just so charming and so positive, and so he grows on people. And to see him in a situation where he's surrounded by just British angry shit, and he's just like, all right, well, it's this way, we're going to do it, and just slowly see them all warm up to him. That was a real great experience. I really did appreciate that show and that kind of medium and that can mean, especially when it's not over sappy, like put a unicorn into a pit of demons, and to see the demons be like, I like this unicorn, it's pretty cool. Yeah.
That's
not
awesome.
that not that the British are demons, I suppose I should rephrase that, but
Yeah.
it is what it is.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to just have a laugh. And I do another thing I find with like
Mm.
um television, a lot of television now is it's a lot shorter form. Like you'll get an 8 episode season or a 10 episode season, and a lot of the shows that I liked, or okay, to be honest, I still like on like the CW, like the Vampire Diaries, or like the OC, or what have you.
Hey, I love the OC, man.
California. You had such a long time to get to know the characters, like the 24 episodes in a season or something. So they really had time to just kind of let the characters sort of be silly sometimes and just play and have like do silly things like go to the mall and like I don't know and make mistakes, and not everything needed to be high stakes all the time. And also with the spreading out of the episode, so like you're with these characters every week for like almost the entire year, right? But now with everything, like they'll throw money into a TV show and make these high budget crazy CGI 8 episode seasons that I could watch in like a week, and then I forget about it the next week.
Yeah, it's a little disposable that way.
Yeah, and they don't get to do that rich character building where you just kind of let where the characters start to feel like real people. Mm.
Exactly. You were mentioning the OC. My best friend Jay and I like love the OC. Like we
Yes.
used to call each other when it was on and airing. We used to watch Smallville and OC and call each other during commercials. And the OC, the thing is just like Ryan Atwood was just a really good guy in a really bad situation. And
Mhm.
Sandy Cohen, like, oh my God, writing like that, just really great TV show dads can
Yeah.
really good, like, parents in shows, but
I love
Sandy
TV
Cohen
shows.
was just something else. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the fact that Luke was, like, literally the carbon copy high school jerk, bully, asshole, and his dad ends up being gay, and then all of a sudden, all the assholes he hung out with turn on him, and who's
Mm.
there to fight for him?
Ryan!
Ryan. and they
Yeah.
both punch each other in the face and they give each other this look and oh my god, seeing them become friends was another example of I fucking love it when enemies become friends. I love it,
Yeah,
love it.
yeah. Or just, like, all the ways that Marissa is just, like, tortured and unhappy and wounded all the time, like,
Melissa never liked the OC. She's just like, all these thin, rich people are complaining all the fucking time. And I'm like, it's not like that, Mel. This show means if you punch enough people in the face, you'll live in a beautiful home. Which is not the point. Which is not the point at all, but it's true.
Maybe that was the working title, who knows?
Exactly.
You know that the person who plays, Rachel Bilson and, Belinda Clark, who play, Summer and, Julie Cooper, respectively, actually have a podcast where they talk about the OC. They go episode by episode and talk about it.
What the fuck is this show called, Tara?
Welcome to the OC, bitches. I mean, I don't know, I have better things to do.
I don't no. Well, first of all, I do, but I love podcasting and my dog loves to walk. So
Hmm.
bring it fucking on. That's so cool. I love those.
Yeah.
I love those
Julie
perspectives.
Cooper was, like, my favorite character too, because she's such she's a character that could have been so one note, and the idea that they gave her a redemption arc and, complexity, even though she does some pretty crazy things, like try to murder her husband and sleep with her daughter's ex-boyfriend, and yeah.
We have a One Tree Hill fan.
Oh yeah, I don't want to be anything other than what I'm. There's actually a podcast for One Tree Hill too. The three girls who played Sophia Bush, Hillary Burton, and I know their real names: Haley, Peyton, and
I'm pretty sure Sophia
Brooke.
Bush is her real name, though.
Yeah, no, that's the actress's name.
Yeah.
Peyton, Brooke, and Haley. The three
Okay.
actresses that play them have a podcast where they also talk about One Tree Hill and go episode by episode and talk about it. So there's a lot, yeah. So they're doing a lot of stuff capitalizing on our nostalgia. I keep waiting for there to be something like that crops up with the Vampire Diaries, but I guess that's too recent.
Oh, it's called Drama Queens, apparently.
Drama Queens, yes, exactly. Drama.
So
Which,
really. Oh, so I'm so sorry. Sorry. Sometimes there's a little delay at the audience. So when I think someone's done talking, sometimes I'll start and it'll seem like I'm a dick, but it's actually because of a little millisecond where if there's a quiet part, I think I'm supposed to, oh, it's time to speak. Okay. Here's what I think of this. But first of all, I got to check out that OC podcast. That sounds fucking rad. Like, and I'm going to tell my friends about it too, because, but all dudes love the OC. We just do.
I know my brother loves it too. He's not ashamed.
Oh yeah. Okay, so getting back to video games, a performance that really captured, or what I loved about just a character arc is that Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is fucking rad. It's like a totally new way of doing a Zelda game where you wake up and you remember nothing. And it is up to you as the player to put your past together. You will find memories and you will remember things slowly, but the narrative is not thrust upon you. You can go the whole game and ignore your past. But of course, the story lover in me wants to go find it, and seeing what happens is really cool because everybody has a destiny and Link's a fucking awesome fighter, and you got all these people who are supposed to be, they pilot these things called divine beasts, which are giant fucking like robotic elephants and camels, and they're the ones who are supposed to defeat Calamity Ganon. And Zelda, the key is they need Zelda to get her powers, but Zelda does not, it's not working. And she's training and training and praying and feels all this pressure because according to legend, the princess will get these powers and everything will be okay. And slowly, spoilers, whatever, it doesn't work. So you wake up in the future after having everybody failed. The big legendary battle that was supposed to happen doesn't go well, and you wake up in the future. You wake up in the future with no memory, and you're slowly piecing together and showing the next generation of people that were kind of their lineages attached to these original pilots, much like the sages in the other games. And it's a great story, but it's all about Zelda fucking failing. You know what I mean? Like that's it. And then later on in the future, she finds her inner stuff. But here's the thing, there's like this kind of offshoot sequel called Legend of Zelda Twilight Warriors. No, not Twilight, Hyrule Warriors.
I
And
think I've
it's
heard of that.
and it's a different type of game where you just go and fucking punch everybody into hamburger meat as fast as possible. It's like one of those speed round battle games. But
Oh.
there was another they have your regular Legend of Zelda one, but then you have this other one that is kind of a sequel slash prequel to the game I just told you about. Now, what's interesting about that is the big battle that everybody fails, and that's the premise of the game. It's that we fucked this battle up. We did not win. This is why this game is happening. So this other game, and I believe it's called Hyrule Warriors, Battle of Calamity, or one of those things. You're in the battle and you know you're gonna lose, but you know you're getting the soldiers up and you're seeing Princess Zelda really, because the memories are very fragmented in the game I was telling you about before, but in this one you're seeing it in real time. Zelda is not it's not going well. It's not going well. And you see her really say, like, I just want to be who I was destined to be. I'm supposed to be someone great. I'm supposed to do this thing. I'm supposed to save everybody, but I can't do it. It's not working. And you're in the battle and you see like Calamity Ganon and is about to kill all the people that all the pilots are going to die. And and what's fucked up is like, and spoilers everybody, sorry if you haven't played this game yet, but I gotta tell the tale. They're all about to die, and then all of a sudden this flash of light happens and all their descendants from the other game show up and help them.
Oh,
And
power
they'll-
of friendship
and all
moment! Power of
and all
friendship
yeah,
moment!
and all of a sudden you're
Mm.
changing the past. So the entire game you're like, oh, any fucking minute now we're all going to die because we're destined to die.
Aw.
But then the past is changing, and then Zelda all of a sudden, like, she fucking owns it. She has like one of those like "This is our Independence Day" speeches, and she's fucking leading the charge, and it's so fucking cool because Zelda's a playable character too, and she's fucking awesome.
Nice.
And she gives this speech and stuff, and she really like it's really well fucking done, and it's really cool to experience both games because Patricia Somerset, I believe that's what her name is. Yeah, Patricia Somerset just did a fucking awesome job playing kind of like a sad self-doubting version of herself in the other game. And then when the tide is changed and the past is changed, it's really cool to see what becomes of her. Like,
Mm.
yeah, so I was deeply emotionally into that because I was just like, waiting for everyone to die and just being like, I guess the last level will be figuring something out, but then all of a sudden, oh shit,
Aw.
so that was really cool.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't played Zelda games in a really long time because
Mm.
once again I was kind of a PlayStation bandwagoner.
There we
Um,
go. I was a Nintendo kid. I just always have been. Yeah.
yeah, but speaking of games in which you think everyone's gonna die, well, actually there's a lot, but there's still this little part of me that's holding out hope that they're going to like change the trajectory of the Final Fantasy VII remake, so there's a possibility to save Aerith.
Okay.
Oh, but sorry, you said you haven't played any other Final Fantasy games.
It's really okay.
Oh no,
What you
I just
say?
spoiled. I know
No,
I
no.
actually
What
spoiled
you
that for
say?
like. There's like 2 people that I spoiled the Aerith thing for, and I'm like, doesn't everybody know that? I just kind of thought that it's one of those things that every human being in the world knows. Well, every gaming human being in the world knows about Aerith. Yes. Did
Well,
I
yeah,
just
but
spoil it for a whole bunch more people? Like, oh
the,
god.
the game's like 20 years old. So,
Hmm.
yeah, but speaking of remakes, did you ever play the Square Enix Nintendo DS 3D remake of Final Fantasy IV?
I did actually because my brother had a DS. I didn't, but I was so you know determined to play like every version of the. I really don't like that aesthetic, like the kind of super deformed. Because even though he was like this little 8-bit character, when I
Mhm.
pictured like Cecil and Kane in my mind, they were men. You know, they were
Okay.
tall, they were
Ah,
striking, they were sexy men. And then it's kinda like, and Rydia was like an exotic, sexy woman. And then when you kind of turn them into these super deformed, cartoonish characters, it kind of ruins it for me a little bit.
okay.
Um, but I think they did a really good job of, adding a couple of extra things and fixing a lot of the dialogue that they butchered in the original Super Nintendo version.
I gotta say, like, I was a bigger fan of it than you because, when I saw the trailer announcement, this is when YouTube was still relatively fresh,
Mm.
um, I remember hearing about it just offshoot. I was just Googling because I never had finished the game. I wasn't a good enough gamer on Super Nintendo. And I was looking it up and they're like Final Fantasy remake coming out. And all of a sudden I just kind of felt like instead of like trying to embrace someone else's nostalgia, I was about to create my own.
Oh,
Because
nice.
here's this new one that I could start fresh. And instead of watching my friend play it, here's the version that I will play.
Mm.
And I remember being so fucking excited to do it and just almost hearing like, when you're so excited, you almost tear up. I,
Yes,
I
yes.
I definitely felt that way about that trailer, and I start playing the game, and, something that really stuck with me is when you're in the ship and you get attacked by a sea monster.
Oh,
Uh
yeah, 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 Leviathan and all your friends are, like, thrust into the sea, and you think they're all dead, and you wake up on the island, and you're all alone. You're like, "Oh my god, I'm all alone, all my friends are dead."
yeah, and then
Yeah,
you
that
slowly find them, and then Kang's memory's lost and stuff, and he's attacking, like, "Oh, it's fucking badass." And then you find out that, what's her name, like, was, like, living in the stump went to an island where time is different, and she's an adult now. It was Rosa, right?
Yeah.
She's an
Yeah, that's
adult now?
Rydia. Yeah, I went out as Rydia for Halloween in grade 8, actually. My mom made me this amazing green cape. I still have it upstairs, it's enormous.
Oh, okay. That game, but the story of that game like really stuck with me because I remember I wasn't even playing it. My friend Phil Germain, one of my oldest friends, he was just playing it from the beginning, and I was fascinated by. Oh shit! So here is a dark knight that doesn't like what the authorities are doing and really wants to.
Mm.
He suspects that something's wrong, and the king kicks him out of the kingdom, and just it's him and Kane against the world at that point, and then seeing the heel turn and seeing like them thinking, all right, we're going to go save the world now, and then having the Leviathan happen. I thought it was really cool in the remake, the Leviathan, the way it happened, but for some reason I was much more scared of the 16-bit version that just came out of the water, and because it was
Like,
almost like yeah.
just like this little thing coming out of, like, and then, like, the little whirlpool, like
Yeah, exactly. But,
Yeah.
like you were saying, you're picturing Cecil and Kane being these two strapping men. I was like picturing the scariest fucking sea monster in the
Mm.
world. So seeing a fully 3D animated one, I'm just like, yeah, it's not that scary. You know?
Mhm.
Yeah. I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They kinda make everything kind of cute, you know,
It's
which is
it's it's kind of the way. I mean,
yeah.
Legend of Zelda, half the merchandise is all Wind
It's
Waker
very
stuff
cute,
because
it's very
yeah,
cutesy, like, I know that they kinda made Link a little more, I don't know, like, dreamy for teens, I guess, like, the more recent incarnations of him, but it's sort of like it's almost
yeah.
like it's too late for me to get into the series, and I'm bad at puzzles too,
Okay, there
um
you go.
but if you have, like, 500 hours of your life to give away, I would recommend diving into the Trails of Cold Steel series. They have it on Switch now, so,
Oh, cool.
yeah.
That's something I would try out, Tales of Cold Steel. That sounds like a lot of fun. Oh, sorry, he's over there. All right, sorry, my doggy, he's going through some back pain stuff, and my Melissa's the best mommy in the world, and she's
Hmm.
just she's checking on him. Aw. So everybody out there, I can't keep Tara all night. I believe we're gonna stop in about maybe like 15. But on Ryan Stick Show, we talk about whatever we want, and I'm catching up with an old friend. It's been what?
Yeah.
It's been a few decades since we had a long form conversation. And back when we were teens, we were so up our own asses that we were just we were just focused on trying to figure out what the fuck we were in life. But
Yeah, I
yeah,
feel so sorry for, like, myself and the people that had to put up with me when I was a teenager. I was so up my own butt. I'm not allowed to say
we
"ass,"
all were.
like, I forget that my profanity filter is still on, in my mind. So,
Yeah.
like, I just remembering like what a freaking hypocrite I was. Like I really like to kind of philosophize and moralize, and yet I was always talking behind my friends' backs and I was doing all the things that I used to condemn other people for doing, just like the level of hypocrisy that I had. And just the fact that like I don't know, I was so scared of real human connection and intimacy. I would have to get like rip roaring drunk to have a good time with anybody. Except maybe my friend Andy. I don't know if you remember her, but
Mm.
yeah,
Or
like, yeah,
yeah, well, it's when I got together with Melissa, she you know, she's this beautiful older woman that doesn't drink, right? And I'm
that's
just like, "Oh
awesome.
my God, all my powers are gone." Like, first of all, just 5 years maturity on me. And she doesn't drink, so like that crutch is gone. So
Mm,
I'm kind of glad. I'm kind of glad that I had to rely on 100% sober meat in order to seal this deal. Yeah,
mhm.
so to speak. But everybody out there, before we go, if there are any particular games or anime or cartoons or anything that gave you the feels, good Lord, it's been a long 2 years and we've felt the feels so gosh darn much, but it's been about kind of things that are out of our control. What made you feel things in a good way, or a sense of loss, or a sense of pleasure, any sort of sense that you get out of geeky entertainment? Let us know. And I will mention right now that in comic books, not once but twice, a death of a character that inevitably would just come back later because that's just the way comic books are,
Mm,
affected me greatly. And one of them was in Ultimate Spider-Man, the first time he died, which says, you know, they used to do this a lot. But the first time he died, I was heartbroken because I had read every issue. Like we're talking like 100 issues. That's a lot of investment and time of a person,
no
their
kidding.
personality, their quirks, their ups, their downs. And when they ended up killing him, there was this temporarily, there was this comic book cover where him and Uncle Ben are walking into the light. You could say, you know, it's a
Mm,
white comic book, and they're walking, and Uncle Ben has his arm over Peter's shoulder, and you see their backs turned, and Peter's in a Spider-Man outfit but his mask is off, and Uncle Ben's just like, I'm really proud of you, and you're just like, oh, that's so fucking sweet, because all he ever wanted to do was, you know, like live life to you know, his Spider-Man's slight negligence is like kind of why Uncle Ben dies in the first place. You know, it's
oh,
situational, but he spends pretty much every day trying to, like, you know, live life, great power, great responsibility, trying to correct that mistake. So or live life in a better way to live with that mistake. And I'm just like, wow. So, you know, it's pretty much that cover screams validation. So I was just like, wow. And then Donatello in the comic books, Ninja Turtle wise, died for like an issue, but still, even reading that it happened fucked me up, because it's like a darker comic book series where Bebop and Rocksteady actually kill people, and like that's kind of what happened. So it's, yeah. Any loss in anime, like your favorite, like a favorite character that as soon as they passed on, you know, even temporarily, like it fundamentally kind of fucked with you.
ah, like, mm. You know, that damn puppet from that kid's movie. There are there are a lot, but my brain is having a hard time with retention right now. Um,
Oh, you have been
I'm
talking for an
bit
hour and a half. It
yeah.
happens. Yeah.
I guess like like in video games though. Oh, I remember one thing. Um, Final Fantasy VI is another one of my favorites,
Mm.
and there is this moment, at the end of the first part of the game where you have to run and get off of this floating island that's about to collapse, and then you get to the end of the island, and it's like, do you jump or do you wait? I'm like, well, why the hell would I wait? And I jump on the island, and then I realize that by doing that, I've left one of my team members behind, and they died, and it was because of me, and you never
Uh,
get them back for the rest of the game. Um, and at the end of the game, when his character's face comes on, it's just the sad music and nobody's there. It's just like, oh my god, what have I done? What have I done? And you know, you put a lot of investment into these games, and it wasn't it wasn't the time when there were just multiple saves for you couldn't just go back and be like, oh, I'll just go back to an earlier save. I should have consulted my walkthrough. Your walkthrough were your friends, right? Like that was your walkthrough. Like you would talk to your friends who had played the same game, and they would tell you, oh, okay, well maybe if you go around this little corner, there's a chest. It's like, don't forget that. And they would tell you the tips and tricks. But Final Fantasy VI, I remember like me and my friends saved up money. Me and my sister saved up money and got it like the moment it came out. So we didn't know what we were doing. And the level of guilt that I felt because the character died because of me, because I couldn't just wait the 5 minutes, that killed me. It killed me. And I'm not really sure how I feel about the fact that there are certain games now that you won't get the same enjoyment out of them if you play them without a walkthrough, because you're going to miss stuff. Like there's some certain missable quests and time sensitive things and certain social links that if you don't do them, if you don't have your face in the guide, you're going to miss half of the game. So it bothers me because it kind of takes away the feeling of like agency that I have when I'm staring at a guide, but I also can't not. I want to kill Shadow again. I can't handle killing Shadow again.
Speaking of killing Shadow, wait for Shadow.
I know.
Non-person and humans really on the same page.
Yes, it was implied. Yes, yeah. A lot of people, you have to go to all the inns and sleep there multiple times to get that little bit of the story about Shadow. So he was important, and I killed him. Thanks for rubbing it in.
Jake Gunn. Oh, my buddy Jake Gunn. I love talking with Jake Gunn. It's every time I see him, it's always a great conversation, because even when we disagree about geek stuff, we're both so passionate about it. It's almost kind of like a dueling of a sword with a swordsman, and at the end of it, like it's just like, well done, sir. Well done. But Jake says Devilman Crybaby was pretty emotional, as if the name doesn't give it away.
I watched a couple of episodes of it and I found it really weird and cool, but I don't know why I stopped watching it. Probably because the inability to sit still thing. But just recently, The Promised Neverland. Oh, that was a rough one. It's about demons that eat children.
Wow.
And I don't want to give any spoilers, but like they kill children, and usually that's one of those taboos where they don't kill innocent young people, like but they do.
Wow.
And characters that you come to like very, very, very much. And I'm not one of those people that has much of a weakness for children. I kind of almost wish that they would kill them more in media, because it would make it for a more compelling sacrifice. But that one just got me in the gut, and so well animated too. Right.
I believe this is from the 2011 IDW Ninja Turtles series that I was actually mentioning before about Donatello. Holy shit, everybody, if you're a Ninja Turtles fan, if you love Ninja Turtles, I strongly suggest the IDW Ninja Turtles comic book run, because it takes the grittiness of what Ninja Turtles is supposed to be from those early 90s, the first 90s movie and original conception, but it also takes the silliness of going to Dimension X and fighting rock soldiers and goes from story to story and feels seamless, like it all belongs. And co-creator Kevin Eastman is a big hand in the writing of it, and it's absolutely awesome. So Nostalgia Cousin Eddie says Casey Jones letting his dad beat him because his mom said in her dying bed to let his father feel strong gave me a sad, angry feeling. Yeah, that's fucked up. And another fun thing about that, well, not fun, another tragic and interesting part of that Ninja Turtles run is the first few issues, it starts where 3 of the Ninja Turtles all have red masks, and like in the original comic books, the original before action figures, they all had red. Why would they have multicolored one? There's no toy. So they give a throwback to that, and that's super interesting how they managed to write that in. But it's because they wear it as a tribute to their lost brother, because they haven't seen Raphael since they were mutated. So it's been a year. They're not actually 15 years old. but it's been a year, and Raphael's been living on the street eating out of dumpsters. And
Oh, homeless Raphael.
Raphael on his own becomes friends with Casey Jones, who he actually defends against his abusive father. It's really fucking cool. So
Wow.
Raphael's having his own adventure before he meets up with the three who are searching for him every night. It's fucking awesome.
That does sound pretty awesome.
Oh, here's
This
another
gives me
one.
said, oh.
Oh, in the new DuckTales cartoon, finding out that Scrooge almost went broke looking for his niece, but no one believes them and turned their backs on him. That's fucking cool.
What?
Wow, I got to see that.
I didn't know that they had done like a DuckTales reboot where they actually deal with issues other than Scrooge just swimming in coins, which you actually couldn't do because it would really hurt.
They did that on Family Guy, I think, where he tries to. Yeah.
And since you kept saying original, it reminded me of The Originals.
Okay.
It's a spin-off of the Vampire Diaries, and I know it's not anime or video games, but it's nerdy. And I don't know how to talk about these things without giving spoilers, but the last episode, I just like my two people that I've come to, know as my, anyways, it broke my heart. Death, very sad death, broke my heart.
I was
Sacrifice, so much sacrifice.
I was
Do you
really
think
fucked.
oh,
Oh, sorry. I was really fucked up by the death of Mitch Dawson's dad in
oh
Dawson's Creek
yeah, right.
in
And
season 5.
why the hell did they kill Jen in the last episode of Dawson's Creek? Was that really necessary? That
I
was
don't
not,
fucking know.
that didn't add anything to the story. Jen got the crappy end of the stick that entire series. I don't know why everyone liked Katie Holmes so much. She was like, "Oh my god, Dawson," and like, "Why are you drinking a beer?" It's like, I don't even know you. Anyways,
I like how you I like how you also did the mouth movement. The Dawson, the Joey famous mouth movement. Like, I don't know, Dawson.
I can only talk out of one side of my mouth. Yeah. So, I was just thinking, though, do you think the reason why we respond with so much emotion to stories of people like sacrificing themselves for the greater good, do you think that's partially because we've been conditioned by 2,000 years of the story of Jesus' sacrifice that even if we're not necessarily religious ourselves, it's so much part of the cultural zeitgeist that like sacrifice is a noble thing and that our salvation comes through sacrifice in some way, that I don't know, that just having that idea propagated for millennia makes us kind of react more emotionally to the idea of sacrifice.
Yeah. I always love it when a person who's kind of deemed as a weak link kind of shows like the most amount of bravery, and even when the odds are against them. Like even Captain America in like Endgame, there's a scene where like everyone's fucking knocked out, like fucking Thor's the God of Thunder, he's fucking unconscious. Tony's in a fucking Iron Man suit, he's fucking out for the count. But here's this guy, like, he's got super soldier serum, but he's not fucking bulletproof. Odin's not his dad. And he's looking up and he just is looking at this ongoing army. There's a fucking army going against him, but he's still that 100-pound weakling that existed before the shot that gave him all these muscles, who was willing to stand up to anybody, even though he had no power to take them on. And he kind of just gets up, dusts himself off, gets the shield tight, and is about to, walk into his own death, when you hear at the last second in his radio, a friend he thought was dead for 5 years says their inside joke on your left, which was the first thing they ever said to each other while jogging. And that type of shit, I like, even though he's a superhero, he's still fucked and still stood up in the face of impending doom. And I always love that. There's a video game thing I just remembered. By the way, Nostalgia Cousin Eddie says The Originals is not streaming anywhere in Canada. I've been wanting to check it out.
Actually, it just got released on Amazon Prime.
We're learning things tonight. Shit.
Yay, learning.
Cool. Awesome. I hope Nostalgia Cousin Eddie is very happy about that. There's a scene in another Zelda game that I'll say really quickly that fucking sent a bolt of lightning into my enthusiasm. It's fucking crazy. It's, Link is, you're Link, you could fuck people up, but there's like this little kid in this town that's kind of like, the one that everyone teases and isn't fast enough and isn't the one that gets picked for things, but you keep tabs on him. He's a sweet little kid. And then you're riding into this town, but all of a sudden this cutscene happens and you see like these bad guys in slow motion, like these big demons on demon horses are fucking riding. And you see like one of the little kids, not the one that you've been keeping tabs of, but one of the little girls, she's kind of there and she doesn't see the demons coming. And she
Oh.
turns around slowly and she's about to get fucking trampled. But the little kid that everyone picked on slowly pushes her out of the way and
Aw.
stares the bad guys in the face. And then you get into town and you see that the bad guys are there and they have this little kid tied to a spear.
Oh
And so your
no.
little buddy that showed all this bravery is tied to a spear and you got to go get him. And I was just like, it is on. All you motherfuckers are going to pay. You are the ones who are the ball lickers. I'm going to fucking, yeah. Anyway,
Mm.
before we go, Tara, I got to say, because I got to go walk my lovely, beautiful dog who just went to the vet today. And,
Mm. Yeah, I hope he's doing okay, and I gotta go walk
yeah,
my bladder.
there you go. But right before we go, let's just, I can't oversell your podcast enough. It's absolutely lovely, well produced, well said, wonderfully read. Tell everybody just a little bit about where to find this podcast, what it's about, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's called Addicted to Recovery, the interactive memoir. And you can find it on, well, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google. It's on all the things.
Mm.
And if you find me on Facebook, you can find it there too, Tara Nicole Boyce. So yeah, you can find the Facebook group there, which is just the name of the podcast, Addicted to Recovery, the interactive memoir, where I try to get people to talk about their personal business. But apparently not everybody is comfortable talking about their personal business in public. I don't know.
Who are those
I have
people?
no problem just getting like, like emotionally naked in front of people, but
Mm.
not physically, but emotionally fine. And yeah, so it's kind of a podcast where there's this overarching story, which is my life, well, what I can remember of it. And
Mm.
with every episode, I kind of talk about the issues that surround what happened in that chapter, such as, having dysfunctional relationships or just drinking and that sort of culture, insecurity, spirituality, voices in your head, whatever it may be. And yeah, and it's kind of, and yeah, it's kind of linear at this point, and it's almost like a true crime podcast. It's actually nothing like a true crime podcast, but I thought if I said that, then people would listen to it because everyone loves true crime podcasts.
There you
And I
go.
think I do shoplift a couple of times. Does that count?
Right before we go, I just like to say I think it's commendable that I hear a lot of people's recounting of their own history that sometimes I'm a witness of, and
Hmm.
they always kind of paint themselves out to be the tragic victim or like the person who's just like, yeah, all this happened because of this person. I mean, fuck,
Uh,
I would never do this. It's because of them. I think it's very commendable that you pretty much own everything you put out there, and you don't throw anyone under the bus, and there's no just kind of like, well, this happened because of this fucking person. It's like, no, you completely own it. And I think that's kind of like why so many people are going on this journey with you. It's because you're like, I think the bravest thing anybody can ever do is say my bad.
hmm.
And that's it.
Yeah, well, it took me a good, 10 years of being in and out of rehab to figure that one out.
Mm.
Uh, there was a lot of time where when I was in therapy, trying to think about who had wronged me the most and the most pain that I'd been in and who was to blame for my pain. And maybe if I figured it out, then I would be able to get the bottom of it and drink like a lady. Um, but that never got me sober. What got me sober was just kind of owning my part in my own life, right? And owning the fact that, my life was my responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I have some friends. I have a friend that's been sober for God 25 years, 30 years.
Woohoo!
And sometimes I forget that he still goes to meetings, he still does the work. But sometimes I forget, I'm like, it's just such not part of him anymore to maybe he has a strong support group. He's an amazingly independent person. But at the same time, I'm like, I have other friends in recovery where I forget that I'm like, oh yeah, that's a large part of their life. And I think that's part of it. I think that's part of like, when you don't walk around like what happened to you makes you into a Charlie Brown or Eeyore type
Mm.
character when you kind of find yourself on the other end and like you're still acknowledging, yes, there is still a bullet hole somewhere in me, but
Yeah.
at the same time, I'm not defined by the limp it gives me, if that makes any
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, and at least I and at least I survived the wound, right? Like,
Yeah.
there was a long time where I really didn't think I would. I was just like, "When the hell is this thing just gonna fucking kill me already?" Like, like,
Mhm.
I was just sick of it. I was just it's like, "I'm doing my best to kill myself here." But I mean, not really, but I didn't actually wanna kill myself, but I was drinking in a way that would indicate that I did. Um but
Mhm.
and the fact that I'm no longer in that reality, it's really hard to be like, because I have something to compare it to, right? Because I know what it's like to be there. So it's really hard for me to be like, like, "Oh, boo-hoo," like, I lost many years of my life and, I'm not happy about it, but I'm still really happy that I got out at all.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Like, and like I said, like, do you think it's a little easier to, the road to recovery? I don't know. I have no idea what it's like to like walk in your shoes. I'm just a listener of your journey through the podcast form. Do you find that any part of this process is a little easier because you have a podcast to answer to, if you could say?
Yes, yes,
Mm,
yeah. Um, I feel like the same there was this person in my brain for a long time, like, not literally, but who was always trying to sabotage me, but now I kind of feel like there's someone else sitting in that chair who is trying to protect my best interest. And I think, having my support networks undermined somewhat by COVID and the inability to just kind of go to support meetings. They still exist online, but it's not the same sort of feeling of community of sitting in a room with a bunch of people and just feeling their energy and um having that removed. I think something in my brain said you need that extra layer of accountability. And
mhm,
um 'Cause if you're going around like, my ego is still pretty active, though a lot of people are gonna say in recovery to, like, you have to get rid of your ego, but my ego is one of the biggest reasons why I'm still sober, because now the idea of drinking again is just too bloody embarrassing. Like, I can't go around talking about recovery on a public forum and then go out and drink again, like, come on. No, no, golly. Like, it embarrasses me just to think about it, like, what would everyone think of me? So, yay, my ego.
I'm gonna try to track down this interview. You would find it so fucking fascinating. There's this guy, my buddy Rockman. He interviewed like God, maybe last year or something. It was the singer of this band called Blue October, and
Mm.
he went through recovery, and it was recording songs about being recovered, but he was still drinking.
Oh.
And this is super sober him now,
Mm,
talking about how the facade he put on
mm,
about being sober by like projecting that he was through lyrics, but he was still smoking weed, he was still drinking, he was still all that. So it's fucking fascinating, like how it's not just such a Hollywood ending about some of these things, and it's I commend everybody out there who just like every day is an effort sometimes for many, in fact for most, especially in this year. I think humanity can all agree that
mm.
after all this is over, we're all going to be mentally a little fucked for a while, and we should kind of
Oh.
embrace that, as opposed to being like, any second now things are going to be okay, things are going to get back to normal. It's like as soon as you kind of embrace the hot mess we all are right now, I think we can live with the circumstances a little bit easier when we're
Yeah, and
not
have
constantly.
compassion for everyone else's mess a little bit too, because
Yeah.
and for sure, because 'cause we're all kinda going we're all going through something. as much as in many ways, COVID enabled me to do a lot of things I probably wouldn't have done otherwise, such as the podcast. It's still really interfered with a lot of things too. And I know a lot of people who have struggled immensely, and just kind of
Mhm.
trying to get into a headspace where like not judging other people and not judging yourself for just it's hard
Yeah.
having everything disrupted.
Yeah, big thing about everybody out there, if you're just I strongly recommend Tara's episode called I believe it's season 2 episode 1, and it's I think it's called an abusive person, just because I'm just like, I think that's the one that clicked with me the most, because it's you said something really cool, and I mentioned at the beginning of this broadcast where you're like, no, but I'm like, the things I say about to me is something I couldn't fathom saying to another human being. Like,
Mm,
they are so cruel, and I'm like, that's the same thing. And I've got to say, like, that is a part of me that totally exists. Even after this episode airs, no matter how much, we had a great
mm,
conversation. We had wonderful comments and everything. I'm going to think of some part where I didn't ask a question well and dwell on it for a day. Every time there's going to be
mm.
quiet, I will dwell on it. And that's just, and thanks to your podcast, I kind of like I kind of like was so self-aware enough to realize, bro, you are fucking being way too mean to yourself. Like,
Mm. Oh, well.
this is not helping. You should
Mm.
probably, when you hear someone else kind of say it out loud, you're like, oh, maybe this isn't, maybe the abusive Russian fucking skating coach I have in my brain about all things I do isn't making me an Olympian when it comes to the effort I am, and I'm
Yeah.
having a harder time just living in the moment. So yeah.
No,
So anyway,
I'm glad to bring that sort of thing to light, because I think there's this sort of like shame of thinking that we're the only ones who feel like I think that I used to think that I was the only one who had the kinds of thoughts and feelings that I had. And then it's kind of ironic that I found out that the only thing I had in common with a lot of other people that I met in recovery is that they all have the same crazy voices in their head. And I don't want to say crazy, that's dismissive. But me too. Like, we're gonna finish this episode, and I think we had a good conversation too. And I'm gonna think, oh darn, I forgot to talk about this, and like, oh, I had something really good to say about this. I didn't even get to talk about like Neon Genesis Evangelion. Like, oh my god, that's a soul fuck right there. Oh, I didn't get to talk about the way Gen 13 gave me body dysmorphia. But maybe
yeah.
next time.
Next time, well, no, of course there's going to be a next time. True fucking story. I've had guests on here for like 3 hours. We've had great conversations, and I'm just like, and a fucking 3 days later, I'll get into my head. I'm like, yeah, it's too bad they fucking hate me though. I'm just such a fuck.
Oh.
I'm so fucking needy. Like, I'm so fucking needy, and they picked up on that. They like, they don't want to be my friend. It's
Aw.
fucking great. I'm saying all this out loud, everybody. Just if
Uh,
it will make you feel any better about the weird shit you tell yourself, just to let you know, we are all fucked, all of us.
mhm.
The strongest, coolest person you've ever met thinks somebody thinks they're shit. It is just,
Yeah.
unless they have a mental disorder and are beyond a narcissist.
It
We
was
we
also
we
helpful
all,
for me to like
yeah.
think about the fact that I'm always thinking about what people are thinking about me, a lot less now.
Mm.
Like, I've done a lot of kind of like cognitive restructuring, and I don't obsess about it as much. But considering how much I used to walk into a room and think about what other people were thinking about me, which is also really self-absorbed. Um, but when I think that everyone else is probably thinking about what other people are thinking about them, it makes me realize that they probably don't have all that much time to be thinking about me, because they're thinking about what other people are thinking about them.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
We all we all think we're like the Marissa and Ryan Atwood of our own stories, man.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, yeah, I
yeah,
mean, sometimes I think that I actually started to enjoy casting myself as this kind of tragic villain in my own story,
yeah,
and because you're telling yourself some story about who you are, and if you're not the hero, then you might wanna reconsider the kind of story you're telling yourself, right?
yeah,
Um, because you don't want to be an NPC in your own story either.
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, It's it's crazy, but anyway, Addicted to Recovery, you can get it wherever podcasts are downloaded. I strongly recommend it. Tara, you show warts and all. You put everything in there. I was going to say on the page. Technically, it's on the page, but then it's like, you put everything into the pod. You hold nothing back, and I commend you for not only it takes a lot of guts to say all that stuff on the internet, but it also takes even more guts to not automatically, put someone else down to bring yourself up. Like it's like I said, the lost art of my bad is
Yeah, the lost art of accountability.
yeah, the lost art of accountability. And even I sometimes when I fuck up, I'm so embarrassed, try to think of some white lie to be
Who's
like,
to blame? Yeah, my first thought is who's to blame? It better not be me.
I didn't break it. The dog knocked it over. Like,
Mhm.
any bullshit like that. It's,
Yeah.
I can't possibly be the one to blame. I'm the Ryan Atwood of my own story. I punched.
See, the problem was I think I was the Marissa Cooper of my own story, and that's not a good casting. She dies.
Yeah.
She's awful, and then she dies.
I want to live long enough to be the Sandy Cohen of my own story. That would be a good one. Yeah. Except for season 4. Fucking funny how season 4 just sucks so bad. Like,
it was sad. Yeah, they should have just let it die with Marissa.
There you go.
I hope that wasn't a spoiler for anyone either. Oh God, I'm killing Marissa and Aerith and
Tara, all this shit we're talking about is like 15 fucking years old.
I know, but now with streaming stuff, like there's some people that might be watching an old show for the first time because they can. Like they wouldn't necessarily go out and buy the DVD box set, but if it pops up on Netflix one day, they might be like, "Oh, what's this show about good-looking teenagers?" And they don't, and they're not superheroes or vampires. Why can't they just make a good old-fashioned teen show about good-looking young people being mean to each other without them having to be superheroes or vampires? Where is that?
Yep. Fun, true story though. I was watching Degrassi: The Next Generation, and someone told me somewhere that the character JT died, and I was on like episode number 6, and I watched every episode. I watched every episode expecting him to for 7 seasons, and every episode I'm like, oh, he's turning around the corner. This is where he gets it. So I watched like 100 fucking episodes expecting death for this poor kid. And that's a true story. Anyway,
did he die?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought your friend was just fucking with you. Like they oh yeah, the character's gonna die. It's just so you're like waiting for it.
No, he totally fucking bites it because a kid in our school that used to date his girlfriend or something like that stabbed him. It's really sad. Anyway, yeah. All right. On the horrible dark note, I think it's about time we end the night. But Tara, Addicted to the Recovery, it's great. Everybody check that out. Download it right now. And if you want to join, there's a podcast group of the same name if you are in a situation like that as well. Tara's been great geeking out with you after all these years.
Lots of fun.
Yeah. Well, give high fives to the sis. I only met her a few times, but it was enough to embarrass myself at least twice. For
sure.
Yeah. She was a cooler older sister, metal chick, all these metal posters on the wall, and I'm like, yeah, I love the band Sepultura. I'm like,
or Dimmu Borgir or Emperor or you like the Norwegian black metal stuff. Yeah.
I did what all fucking teenagers do, just fucking pretend they know bands they don't, and there's no Google back then, kids.
You get a patch and put it on your backpack and be like, yeah.
Yeah, I love the Sax Pistols. All right. Take it easy, everybody.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
Thanks for having me. It was a pleasure.
Have a good night, internet.
Okay. Until next time. Bye.